It was supposed to be just another routine political segment, the kind where politicians spar with words and toss out rehearsed lines like confetti. But the moment Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat down in front of the camera that evening, there was a distinct fire in her eyes, something unfiltered, unscripted, and raw. The host gave the usual preamble, teeing up the topic of Trump's recent legal troubles, his controversial public statements, and the storm of lawsuits circling his campaign like buzzards. Crockett waited patiently, hands folded, a quiet calm before the storm. Then, when the floor was hers, she leaned forward just slightly and said, "Let me be perfectly clear. What we're dealing with in Donald Trump is not just a political figure gone rogue. We're looking at a man who has built an empire of lies so deep he can't even see the truth anymore. He's not being prosecuted because he's a political martyr. He's being prosecuted because he is a pathological manipulator who broke the law and thought his money and power made him untouchable." The room went silent. Even the host, used to fiery debates, raised his eyebrows. And out there, watching from a private suite at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump was frozen mid-bite, his face turning redder by the second. Crockett wasn't done. Trump has spent years convincing his base that he's some kind of savior, some anti-establishment hero. But if we strip away the lies, the deflections, the constant victimhood, we're left with a man who would rather burn democracy to the ground than face accountability. He's not a patriot. He's a narcissist with a god complex. Trump shot out of his chair, sending a glass of Diet Coke crashing to the marble floor. His aides scrambled as he shouted, "Turn it off. Turn it off." But Crockett's words were already echoing across every major news network and going viral online. She had touched a nerve, and he knew it. What stung the most wasn't just the content, it was the precision. Unlike other critics who danced around his ego, Crockett had cut through the bluster and gone straight for the jugular. She wasn't afraid. She didn't hesitate. And most dangerously for Trump, she spoke with facts wrapped in eloquence, fire tempered with logic. If you look at the way he incites violence, disrespects the rule of law, and manipulates working-class Americans into defending billionaires like him, she continued, you start to understand the scope of the damage he's done. Trump doesn't love America, he loves what America does for him. And he's willing to divide us, lie to us, and destroy institutions to keep his grip on power. The clip raced through social media within minutes. Hashtags exploded, hashtag Crockett exposes Trump, hashtag truthbomb, hashtag Trump meltdown. Trump's team rushed to prepare a rebuttal, but none of them could match the sheer impact of her delivery. By morning, major newspapers were quoting her. Even some Republicans behind closed doors admitted, she said what we've all been thinking but didn't have the guts to say. Trump, meanwhile, spent the night posting angry rants on Truth Social, calling Crockett names, accusing her of being a deep state puppet, and demanding she be investigated. But the damage had already been done. Crockett's words had pierced his carefully constructed armor. What followed was chaos within the Trump camp. Donors began questioning whether he had the discipline to handle another campaign. His legal advisors scrambled to manage his impulsive online tirades, fearing they'd be used against him in court. Inside the GOP, a new whisper started spreading, maybe Trump isn't invincible anymore. Crockett, for her part, remained composed. She gave no apology, no retraction. Instead, when asked for a follow-up statement, she calmly said, "The truth doesn't need a filter." If the facts shook him, maybe it's time he reflects on why. That statement hit even harder. Analysts praised her courage. Young voters saw her as a rising force unafraid to challenge the most powerful figures. Cable shows aired round-the-clock panels dissecting her takedown. It wasn't just a soundbite anymore, it was a moment. Trump tried to fight back the only way he knew how, louder rallies, bigger insults, more outrage. But the more he ranted, the more he confirmed Crockett's point. The contrast became glaring. On one side, a woman calmly laying out the truth. On the other, a man unraveling in real time. By the end of the week, even Trump's loyal base felt a shift. They weren't abandoning him en masse, but the air had changed. Doubts had been planted. People were listening to Crockett. And that's what terrified him the most. He had always relied on fear and noise to dominate. But now, one fearless voice, sharp, honest, unshaken, had shown America that maybe the emperor really had no clothes. And there was no unhearing what she had said. Let me be perfectly clear. What we're dealing with in Donald Trump is not just a political figure gone rogue. We're looking at a man who has built an empire of lies so deep he can't even see the truth anymore. He's not being prosecuted because he's a political martyr, he's being prosecuted because he is a pathological manipulator who broke the law and thought his money and power made him untouchable. For years, Trump has treated the American people like pawns in a game where only he wins. He lied to their faces, convinced them that the truth was fake and that only he could save them. But what he really saved was himself, from taxes, from consequences, from truth. Every time he played the victim, he was really dodging accountability. And let's not pretend this is about left or right, Republican or Democrat. This is about the soul of a democracy under attack by a man who values loyalty to him over loyalty to the Constitution. When I say he is a narcissist with a God complex, I'm not exaggerating. This is a man who stood in front of a church holding a Bible upside down for a photo op after having peaceful protesters tear-gassed. This is a man who told people to inject bleach during a pandemic. This is a man who wanted to rewrite the truth because the truth made him look weak, and weakness is the one thing he can't stand, because it reminds him that behind the gold-plated walls of his empire, there is a scared, insecure man with no real core, only ego. He told his followers he was fighting for them while cutting taxes for billionaires and dismantling protections for working families. He promised law and order while encouraging insurrection. He said he cared about veterans but mocked prisoners of war. He said he respected women, but the evidence and court cases say otherwise. He says he loves America, but he tried to overturn the very system that makes America a democracy. How is that patriotic? How is that leadership? That's not strength, it's cowardice hiding behind a red hat. And the most dangerous thing? He's normalized dishonesty. He's made it okay for people to say, well, that's just Trump being Trump, as if that excuses criminality and chaos. But let me tell you something, being loud isn't the same as being right, and being rich doesn't make you just. Trump has thrived on distractions and division. The more he's under pressure, the more he lashes out, hoping we'll all look at the noise instead of the facts. He doesn't want the country united, he needs it divided, because in that chaos, he stays relevant. But people are waking up. The facts are catching up. And no amount of tweets, rants, or press conferences will erase the truth. The truth is that Trump is afraid of losing power, afraid of being exposed, afraid that history will remember him not as a president, but as a cautionary tale. And that's exactly what he is. A lesson. A warning. A symbol of what happens when lies go unchecked and when charisma is mistaken for character. I will not be intimidated by a man who thinks loudness is leadership and threats are truth. I will not stand down when our democracy is on the line. And I won't apologize for holding him accountable, because the American people deserve leaders who serve them, not themselves. Every time he calls the media fake, he's projecting his own fraudulence. Every time he says investigations are witch hunts, he's confessing his own fear of justice. And every time he attacks women, journalists, judges, or anyone who stands up to him, he reveals his true weakness, that he cannot tolerate being told no. But this country isn't his empire, and we are not his servants. We are citizens of a republic founded on laws, not on loyalty oaths to men like Donald Trump. If speaking that truth shakes him, good. It should. Because it's time he feels the consequences that millions of everyday Americans have felt while he played king. The working-class families who lost jobs while he held tax cuts for corporations. The immigrants torn from their families. The black and brown communities he scapegoated for political gain. The women silenced, the protesters attacked, the journalists mocked, all so he could feel powerful. That's not leadership. That's tyranny with a bad haircut. And we're done pretending otherwise. So let him lose control. Let him tweet. Let him yell. The louder he gets, the more it proves how close the truth is getting to him. But while he rants, we'll rise. We'll vote. We'll speak. And we'll remember. We'll remember how one man tried to hijack a nation. And how millions stood up and said, not this time. Not again.